Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. First of all, apologies from my part. Some technological glitch on my side, so I couldn't start on time. Anyways, after the apology, again, let's start our today's webinar. Uh, it is my utmost privilege and honor to welcome each and every one of you to today's webinar organized by Al-Sadiq Institute of Islamic Banking, Finance and Takaful. We are very happy and delighted that we have participants joining us from across Pakistan and abroad as well. Your presence reflects a sheer commitment to understand the timeless guidance of Holy Quran and its relevance to today's socio-economic challenges that we all face. So, considering all this, today's webinar, the Quranic principle of wealth circulation and distribution, invites us to reflect upon one of the most fundamental objectives of Islam's economic system, ensuring wealth circulates fairly throughout the society and doesn't entertain and remain concentrated among a privileged few. So, without further ado, I introduce today's speaker. It is my pleasure to introduce our distinguished key speaker, Professor Dr. Hamid Hasan. He is a distinguished economist, researcher, and educator who has worked significantly and contributed to the advancement of Islamic economics and finance. He's a founder of the Islamic Finance Lab, I-FiL, and serves as advisor to the Islamic Economics and Finance program at Shifa Tameer-e-Millat University, Islamabad. His expertise in econometrics and impact evaluation earned him the opportunity to collaborate with Pakistan professors Asim Ijaz Khwaja of Harvard University on a research project examining the socio-economic impacts of Hajj on Pakistani pilgrims. Secondly, and most importantly, Professor Hamid holds a PhD in welfare economics and human development from La Trobe University, Australia, an MPhil in economics from the University of Cambridge, and an MSc in economics from the International Islamic University, Islamabad. He has published extensively in leading peer-reviewed journals and has presented his research at prestigious international conferences in the UK, Saudi Arabia, Malaysia, and several other countries. We are indeed honored to have with him us today. So without further ado, it is my distinct honor to invite Professor Dr. Hamid Hasan to deliver his keynote address on wealth circulation and distribution. Professor Saab, please do the honor.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm grateful to the Al-Sadiq Institute, and I will share my some thoughts on this work in progress. So let me share the slides so that we can move systematically. I hope all of you can see the slides.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we start with the Quranic model of circulation of wealth. That is a conceptual framework with contemporary applications. So I have divided this work or this presentation into 5 parts. So I start with the abstract, then I will give you the introduction and background of this work. Then we will discuss the principles mentioned in the Quran and their implementation, and then the economic, social, and environmental implications of these principles, and then I will conclude the discussion. Now, this lecture develops the Quranic model of circulation of wealth as a moral, social, and institutional framework for addressing economic, social, and environmental and moral problems. It is based on the Quranic objective that wealth should not circulate only among the rich, as stated in Surah Al-Hashr, verse number 7. That is, the part of that verse is كَيْ لَا يَكُونَ دُولَةً بَيْنَ الْأَغْنِيَاءِ مِنْكُمْ. The lecture explains the concept of wealth and then presents Islamic economics as an Islamic approach to economic problems related to production, distribution, exchange, and consumption, and discusses the Quranic principles that create rightful downward and horizontal circulation while blocking unjust upward extraction. Each principle is then applied to the present world, including the zakah institutions, infaq and sadaqah platforms, feeding programs, inheritance enforcement, riba-free finance, anti-hoarding policies, consumer protection, prohibition of gambling and intoxicants, moderation in spending, and preservation of wealth. Economics has progressed substantially over the last 2 or more centuries. Modern societies has developed powerful theories of production, markets, finance, welfare, development, and public policy. They have also witnessed tremendous growth in science and technology, financial innovation, and global production. Yet, some of the gravest economic and social problems have remained unresolved. Poverty in its various forms, extreme inequality, hunger, environmental degradation, financial crises, moral backslide, insecurity, oppression, conflicts, wars continue to affect a large proportion of humanity. These problems cannot be explained by scarcity alone, as economics claims. Many of them arise from misuse and mismanagement of natural and financial resources, from unjust distribution of assets and opportunities, from concentration of wealth and power, and from the absence of moral discipline in economic life. Growth can enlarge the economic pie, but if wealth and resources remain concentrated among a privileged group, the benefits of growth may fail to reach the wider population. Therefore, the central question is not only how to produce more wealth, but how to ensure that wealth circulates in a just, productive, and morally responsible manner. The Holy Quran, the book of guidance, wisdom, and truth for all human beings without temporal and spatial limitations, provides principles for addressing these problems in a holistic manner. The Quran contains more than 1,000 verses directly or indirectly related to economic matters. Its economic teachings are not limited to buying, selling, inheritance, charity, or debt, Their deeper purpose is to protect and flourish society by transforming individuals from selfish and purely self-regarding agents into other-regarding and socially responsible persons. So the Quran demands behavioral change or transformation. The central thesis of this lecture is that the Quranic model of circulation of wealth offers a coherent framework for building a just and compassionate society. It does not abolish private property. It does not deny the importance of production, trade, enterprise, or personal effort. Rather, it places ownership, production, exchange, and consumption within the moral boundaries of justice, accountability, moderation, and concern for vulnerable. Islamic economics may be defined as the Islamic approach to economic problems. This approach draws guidance from Quran and Sunnah and develops policy and institutional applications through consensus, analogy, reason, and experience. In this sense, Islamic economics is neither a mere historical description of Muslim societies nor a simple prohibition-based system. It is a normative and practical approach to economic life. It provides a framework to achieve the Quranic objective of circulation of wealth through a system of production, distribution, exchange, and consumption. The Quranic model of circulation of wealth touches all four areas. It encourages lawful production, justice in distribution, honesty in exchange, and moderation in consumption. It also aims to ensure that wealth does not become trapped in the hands of a few, but remains available for productive, charitable, and socially beneficial uses. The distinctive feature of Islamic economics is that it integrates moral values into economic behavior. Standard economic theories often treat preferences as given and focus on efficiency, incentives, prices, and constraints. The Quranic approach goes deeper by asking whether the preferences themselves are morally sound. Greed, extravagance, hoarding, fraud, gambling, exploitation, and indifference to poverty are not merely private taste or preferences. They are social dangers. Likewise, charity, honesty, moderation, justice, and compassion are not merely private virtues. They are economic forces that shape the distribution of and circulation of wealth. The Quran presents wealth from at least three perspectives: wealth as a mean of sustenance, wealth as a trial, and wealth as a bounty from Allah. These perspectives are essential for understanding the Quranic model of circulation of wealth. First, wealth is a means of sustenance. The Quran states that Allah has made wealth a means of support and maintenance. Wealth allows families to secure food, clothing, shelter, education, health, and dignity. Therefore, Islam does not condemn wealth as such. It recognizes its importance for individual and social well-being. Second, wealth is a trial. Human beings have intense love for wealth, as mentioned in the Quran at several places, and this love may lead them to accumulation, arrogance, neglect of the poor, and injustice. The Quran repeatedly reminds human beings that wealth and children are tests. The test is not whether a person owns wealth, but whether wealth is acquired lawfully, used responsibly, purified through charity, and prevented from becoming a source of oppression. Third, wealth is a bounty from Allah. Since wealth is a bounty, it must be used with gratitude. Gratitude is not only a verbal praise, It includes spending in the way of Allah, supporting relatives, orphans, the needy, the wayfarer, those who ask, and those in bondage. In this perspective, wealth or money is not an ultimate end. It is an instrument for making life meaningful in this world and valuable in the hereafter. Life has an intrinsic value, whereas wealth has an instrumental value. In modern and conventional economics, life of a human being is considered as human resource or labor in the production process. It has only an instrumental value. The capitalist system often emphasizes the time value of money. The Quranic worldview emphasizes the time value of life. Life is limited and accountable. Wealth becomes valuable when it is used within that limited time for good deeds, justice, service, and remembrance of Allah. The holistic economic system of the Quran rests on the fundamental objective stated in the Surah Al-Hashr, as mentioned earlier. Wealth should not circulate only among the rich. This objective this objective provides the foundation for the Quranic model of circulation and distribution and redistribution of wealth. It is the important foundation for Islamic economics and Islamic finance. It does not mean that all people must own the same amount of wealth. It means that wealth must not become confined to privileged class in a way that excludes the poor, weak, and ordinary members of society from access to resources, opportunities, and dignity. Quranic approach is inclusive rather than exclusive. The wisdom embodied in this objective has not been fully recognized in mainstream economic thinking. The circular flow of income presented in economic textbooks usually describe flows among households, firms, markets, and factors of production. It rarely gives central attention to wealth distribution and redistribution among all members of society. However, wealth is a stock that determines access to future income, education, health, business opportunities, political influence, and intergenerational mobility. Therefore, mainstream economics need a stronger focus on the circulation of wealth and assets and not merely the flow of income. The objective of circulation of wealth can also be used as an evaluation tool. Any policy, institution, financial product, law, or market arrangement may be examined by asking the two questions: does it help wealth circulate more widely, or does it confine wealth within a privileged group? Second, does it transfer resources from powerful to the vulnerable in a just way, or does it extract resources from the vulnerable and move them upward to the powerful? Poverty is not merely the absence of income, it includes deprivation in wealth, education, health, housing, social respect, security, opportunity, and voice. So it is a multidimensional concept. Many non-material deprivation depend on material deprivation. A child from a poor family may suffer not from low income, but also from poor nutrition, weak schooling, lack of health care, limited social networks, and reduced future opportunities. The root cause of poverty identified in Quranic circulation framework is wealth concentration. When wealth accumulates among small group, it often produces concentration of power which in turns leads to concentration of or the misuse of resources, financial and moral corruption, injustice, inequality, social unrest, and deprivation. Therefore, reducing poverty requires more than short-term relief. It requires restructuring the direction of wealth flows so that assets, assets, opportunities, and purchasing power move towards the poor and productive middle groups instead of being captured by the privileged minority. This framework does not deny the importance of production, rather it argues that production without just circulation can still leave poverty unresolved. A society may become richer in aggregate while many households remain excluded from the means of livelihood. The Quranic model therefore combines production with distribution, exchange with justice, and consumption with moderation. This is the latest report by the Wealth Inequality, and it shows that the intensity or the seriousness of inequality, which is the global in wealth inequality. So the top 10% owns 75% of wealth, while bottom 50% captures only 2% of wealth. So this shows the seriousness of wealth inequality. If you look at in Pakistan, the situation is that there is a 4.7%, around 5% wealth captured by bottom 50%, while top 10% owns around 60% of wealth. So this is in most of the countries, this is the situation. Now we come to this, the main or the core principles. The Quranic model can understood through two directional principles. First, it ensures full flow from the rich to the poor and from concentrated wealth to wider society. Zakah, infaq, sadaqah, it'am, waqf, inheritance create downward and horizontal circulation. Zakat, infaq create intra-generational transfers, while inheritance creates intergenerational distribution. The second direction is it prevents unjust reverse flow from the poor to the rich. So riba, hoarding, cheating in measurement, gambling, intoxication, fraud, extravagance, corruption create channels through which wealth can move upward from vulnerable groups to powerful groups. The Quranic laws close these channels. Hence, the Quranic model does not depend on passive hope that wealth will eventually trickle down through market forces. It establishes moral, legal, and institutional mechanism to make wealth circulate and to block exploitative extraction. This logic is central to this model. A society cannot solve poverty merely by giving to the poor while allowing other systems to extract from them. Poverty reduction requires both positive support and protection from exploitation. The Quranic model provides both. The following principle form the operational core of the Quranic model of circulation of wealth. Each principle has direct application in the present world. Together, they create a comprehensive system of moral economy. They promote production without exploitation, distribution without humiliation, exchange without fraud, and consumption without waste. Now we will discuss these principles one by one. The principle of zakat. Zakat is an obligatory transfer from eligible wealth to eligible recipients. It is not merely a private act of generosity. It is a social institution that purifies wealth, assists the poor, and prevents wealth from remaining idle. Zakat has a dual effect, one on demand side and the other on supply side. Demand side effect increases the purchasing power of poor households, allowing them to spend on food, education, health, clothing, and shelter, while supply side effect discourages idle accumulation and encourages productive use of surplus wealth. In the present world, zakat should be organized through transparent, accountable, professionally managed institution. Modern zakat system can use digital platforms, poverty databases, household surveys, biometric identity systems, also the blockchain, impact evaluation, and so on. Zakat should not be limited to small cash transfers. It can finance livelihood, restoration, tools of trade, livestock, skill development, small enterprise support, debt relief for eligible persons, emergency relief, education, and health assistance. A strong institution can become a pillar of poverty reduction. It should identify genuine beneficiaries, avoid duplication, reduce administrative leakage, preserve dignity, and measure outcomes. Properly administered zakat can convert recipients into economically active participants and eventually into the givers of zakat instead of recipient of zakat. The second principle is the principle of infaq and sadaqah. The first one is the involuntary charity, and this is the voluntary charity. Infaq and sadaqah represent voluntary spending for the sake of Allah and for the benefit of society. Unlike zakat, which is obligatory and rule-bound, infaq has wider flexibility. It can respond quickly to new social needs and can cover people that may not be reached by formal systems. Present world applications include community welfare funds, scholarship, hospital funds, mosque-based relief, crowdfunding, support for widows and orphans, assistance for unemployed workers, student support funds, corporate social responsibility guided by Islamic ethics. Infaq can also support research, education, libraries, skills centers, community infrastructure through the institution of Waqf. Infaq is especially important because modern poverty is multidimensional. People may need medical treatment, legal support, counseling, shelter, education, digital access, or small business support. Voluntary spending allows society to create flexible channels of compassion beyond state programs and formal zakah mechanism. The third principle is the principle of it'am, the feeding the poor. It means feeding the poor and encouraging the others to feed the poor, as mentioned in the surahs. The Quran praises those who feed the needy, the orphan, the captive, and condemn the attitude of not encouraging the feeding of the poor. Hunger is not merely an economic statistic, it is a moral emergency. A society in which food exists, but people remains hungry, suffers from failure of compassion and circulation. Modern applications include, for example, community kitchens, food banks, school meal programs, ration distribution, digital food vouchers, mosque-based feeding system, nutrition program for children and women, and emergency food support for refugees, displaced persons, prisoners, elderly persons, and disaster victims. Surplus food from hotels, restaurants, weddings, markets, and households can be collected safely and redistributed through regulated food recovery systems. ITAM has a direct and indirect effects. Directly, it reduces hunger and malnutrition. Indirectly, it improves learning, health, productivity, brotherhood, and social trust. It also prevents the humiliation that often accompanies hunger. Now, the next principle is the principle of inheritance, which is very important. The Quranic law of inheritance disperses wealth across heirs and prevents dynastic concentration. It recognizes legal share for men and women and protects the rights of children, parents, spouses, relatives, orphans, vulnerable persons. Inheritance is therefore an intergenerational mechanism of circulation. Present world application include timely distribution of estates according to Islamic inheritance rules, legal protection of women's inheritance rights, prevention of illegal occupation of orphan property, digital land and property records, public awareness of Quranic inheritance shares, estate planning, speedy family courts for inheritance disputes. In many societies, women and orphans are deprived of their rightful shares due to social pressure, informal arrangements, manipulation of documents, and delayed legal processes. Proper implementation of inheritance laws would broaden asset ownership, reduce intergenerational inequality, and prevent wealth from remaining locked in few hands. The fifth principle is the principle of prohibition of riba, which is highly important as far as the Islamic financial system is concerned. Riba creates contractual claim on return without sharing the real risks of productive activity. It can generate a continuous transfer from debtors to creditors, especially when the poor borrow for consumption, medical emergencies, education, weddings, or survival. The prohibition of riba is therefore central to stopping reverse flow of wealth from weak to the strong. Present world application include replacing interest-based lending with Islamic mode of finance, especially the equity-based mode of finance linked to real trade, assets, leasing, partnership, and risk sharing. Qarz Hasan should be developed for emergencies, education, health, small livelihood needs. Islamic microfinance should avoid compounding debt burdens and should focus on empowerment rather than dependence. Distressed debt should be restructured with a compassion, postponement, and remission where appropriate. The prohibition of riba also has macroeconomic significance. It reduces the disconnection between the financial sector and real sector, discourages purely debt-driven growth, and lowers the probability of financial instability. A riba-free financial system should promote equity, shared risk, asset creation, and productive enterprise. The sixth principle is the principle of prohibition of hoarding. The hoarding prevents wealth from circulating. It draws purchasing power, productive investment, and charitable capacity from society. In the present world, hoarding may take from idle cash, unused land, vacant properties, speculative storage of essential goods, unutilized natural resources, capital held away from productive activity. Modern applications include mobilizing idle wealth into productive investment, discouraging speculative landholding, regulating the hoarding of essential goods during crisis, developing work-based assets, encouraging Islamic investment fund for socially beneficial projects, applying zakah effectively to zakatable assets. Governments and communities can also encourage use of vacant land, vacant land, sorry, vacant lands and buildings for housing, education, agriculture, enterprises, and social services. The anti-hoarding principle has both efficiency and justice effects. It improves efficiency by moving idle resources into productive use. It improves justice by preventing small groups from withholding resources needed by society. The next principle is the principle of full and exact measurement. The Quran strongly condemns giving less than due in weights and measures. In modern economics, exact measurement goes beyond traditional weighing scales. It includes truthful pricing, product quality, contract transparency, accurate information, consumer protection, financial disclosure, data accuracy, and prevention of hidden charges. Present world applications include consumer protection laws, accurate weights and measures, fair pricing, transparent contracts, truthful advertising, product labeling, quality standards for food and medicine. Construction, safety, auditing, accountable standards, disclosure requirements, and regulation of digital platforms. In the digital economy, this principle also applies to algorithmic fairness, transparent fees, honest reviews, and protection against manipulation of consumers. Full measurement protects both buyers and sellers. Buyers receive what they pay for, while honest sellers gain trust and long-term prosperity. That is the fazl and barakah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This principle reduces exploitation, hidden inflation, market injustice, and loss of confidence. The eighth principle is the principle of prohibition of gambling and intoxication. Gambling transfers wealth without productive effort, value creation, or real exchange. It can destroy households, intensify addiction, create conflict, transfer resources from vulnerable groups to gambling operators or speculative winners. Intoxication weakens judgment, productivity, family stability, health, and social responsibility. Present world applications include prohibition of gambling industries, prevention of online betting, regulation of casino-like digital games, action against get-rich-quick schemes, financial literacy against speculative traps, public health policies against addiction, rehabilitation programs, family counseling, youth engagement in education, sports, entrepreneurship, and healthy social life. This principle is also relevant to speculative finance when transactions resemble gambling and are detached from the real productive activity. The Quranic objective is to protect wealth, mental clarity, families, and social peace. Now, the second last principle is the principle of iqtisad, which is the moderation in spending. Iqtisad means moderation. It lies between miserliness and extravagance. The Quran discourages both wasteful consumption and socially harmful withholding. Moderation reflects the individual from insolvency. Moderation protects the individual from insolvency, the family from debt stress, society from status competition, and environment from waste. Present world applications include household budgeting, avoidance of unnecessary debt, discouragement of luxury competition in weddings and social ceremonies, reduction of food waste, responsible use of energy and water, simple living, responsible fashion consumption, directing surplus income toward charity, waqf, education, health, and productive investment. Moderation releases resources for productive and charitable use. It also reduces feelings of deprivation because social status is not measured only by luxury display. In this way, moderation supports both economic efficiency and social harmony. And the last principle is principle of preservation of wealth, and it is also one of the maqasid sharia, which is the hifzul mal. The preservation of wealth means protecting property, purchasing power, productive assets, economic rights. It includes prevention of theft, fraud, corruption, misappropriation, destructive behavior, inflationary erosion, environmental damage, and misuse of goods of others. Present world application include protection of property rights, especially for orphans, widows, women, and the poor, transparent land records, anti-corruption institution, stable money, prevention of fraud in contracts and banking, ethical corporate governance, public procurement transparency, financial literacy, and protection from scams. It also includes protection of natural resources because destruction of land, water, forest, and climate harm the wealth of present and future generations. Preservation of wealth is not merely protection of rich person's property. It is the protection of everyone's rightful wealth, especially the wealth of those who lack power to defend themselves. It stabilizes the long-term well-being and strengthens social trust. Now we come to the third part of implementation. The application of these principles requires an institutional architecture or setup. Individual piety is necessary but not sufficient condition. A modern society needs institutions that convert moral principles into reliable system of welfare, justice, and accountability. Zakah institution should collect, manage, target, distribute, and evaluate zakah in a transparent manner. Waqf institution should convert voluntary endowments into schools, hospitals, housing, research centers, skill institutions, food systems, and community assets. Islamic financial institutions should provide finance linked with real economic activity and avoid riba-based extraction. Market supervision institutions should ensure full measurement, honest pricing, consumer protection, product quality, and truthful disclosure. Inheritance and family courts should ensure timely and just distribution of estates, protection of orphans' property, enforcement of women's rights, anti-corruption, and property protection institutions should preserve public resources and prevent elite capture. Educational and moral institutions should develop other regarding preferences, social responsibility, moderation, and awareness of accountability before Allah. Thus, the Quranic circulation model is not simply a call for individual charity, it is a call for moral economy supported by effective institutions. In production, the Quranic model encourages lawful enterprise, socially useful work, responsible use of natural resources, and avoidance of harmful goods and services. Production should not be driven only by profit, but also by benefit, justice, and preservation of human dignity. In distribution, the model requires zakah, infaq, inheritance, waqf, fair wages, social protection, asset-based empowerment. Distribution should not be treated as an afterthought, It should be built into the structure of ownership, finance, labor relation, family law, and public policy. In exchange and trade, the model requires honesty, exact measurement, transparency, fulfillment of contracts, prohibition of fraud, avoidance of riba and gambling. Markets are accepted, but they are not morally neutral. They must operate under justice. In consumption, the model requires moderation, gratitude, avoidance of extravagance, concern for the poor, and protection of the environment. Consumption should satisfy real needs and legitimate comforts without becoming a race of status, display, and waste. Now, what are the social and economic and environmental implications? The Quranic model has significant social implication. By reducing concentration of wealth, it reduces concentration of power. And in turn, by reducing concentration of power, it reduces injustice, oppression, social resentment. By encouraging charity, feeding, moderation, and brotherhood, it strengthens social cohesion and mutual care. The model has also economic implication. Zakah and infaq increases the purchasing power of the poor. Anti-hoarding releases idle assets. Inheritance broadens ownership. Riba prohibition connects finance with real activity and reduces debt traps. Exact measurement increases market trust. Moderation reduces waste and frees resources for productive investment. The model has environmental implication as well. Extravagant consumption, waste, hoarding of resources, and destructive production contribute to environmental degradation. Moderation, preservation of wealth, responsible consumption, and protection from corruption support more suitable use of resources. The Quranic model therefore connects economic justice with ecological responsibility. The Quranic model of circulation of wealth establishes social and economic justice by transforming both behavior and institutions. It does not rely on state redistribution after wealth has already become concentrated, nor does it rely on voluntary charity while leaving exploitative structures intact. Instead, it combines obligatory transfers, voluntary giving, feeding the poor, inheritance dispersion, riba prohibition, anti-hoarding norms, market justice, moderation, and preservation of wealth. The model is highly relevant to the present world. It offers guidance for poverty reduction, hunger relief, financial stability, market regulation, inheritance justice, responsible consumption and production, environmental protection, and moral renewal. It shows that economy cannot be separated from ethics. When wealth is treated merely as an object of accumulation, it tends to generate concentration and power imbalance. When wealth is treated as a trust, trial, and bounty, it becomes a means of worship, service, justice, and human development. The central message of the model is that moral transformation, institutional reform, and wealth circulation must work together. A society becomes just only by producing a society becomes just not only by producing more wealth, but by ensuring that wealth moves in the right direction, reaches the vulnerable, empowers the productive, and does not return unjustly to the already powerful. Therefore, the Quranic circulation of wealth model is not only a theological principle, it is a comprehensive economic framework for building a compassionate, productive, and morally grounded society. Thank you so much for listening my thoughts. If you have any question, you may ask now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this enlightful and really thought-provoking and enriching session. As we conclude today's webinar, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to Hamid Hasan Saab for sharing his profound knowledge, research, and valuable insights with us. I request all participants to kindly share your questions at our website and at our email ID shared with you. We can, Hamid Hassan Saab will respond to your queries. Uh,
Sure.
his presentation has reminded us that the Quran offers not merely ethical ideas, but also a comprehensive economic framework that seeks to uphold the justice, preserve human dignity, and